Welcome to another episode of Esoterica the Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Christian, and joining me are Nolan and Jake from the Fairview, one of my favorite bands from when I used to play in a band a time long ago. So thank you guys for joining me. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty well.
Good. How are you?
Good, good. So the first question we ask anybody that comes on the show usually, because this has been a weird year, how have you guys been handling the COVID?
Bad. No, I mean, I think I've been doing mostly okay. I was unemployed for a while. Now I'm working at Guitar Center because, you can't do the unemployment thing forever, especially when they keep kind of get back. So, at this point now, I just kind of work like everything's normal and people walk into my store like pandemic, never heard of it,
Yeah. Oh my God. It's literally the same. I've been working since day one of the pandemic, and it's just been, I feel like I didn't even have the pandemic experience that like when that initial lockdown happened, I was just like, wait, what? People are like, oh, let's go back into lockdown. And I'm like, that never happened for me. Like,
you were at AT&T.
Yeah, I worked at AT&T, and then I worked at Dunkin' Donuts, and now I'm teaching music lessons. So like, I'm like face to face with people. I'm so occupied with work, but I find less music stuff, obviously, given shows and touring not happening. I find myself just feeling generally less driven to do band related stuff. Like even my writing has kind of dropped off, stuff like that.
It's hard to stay creative. Like it's hard to find inspiration in a time like this. I think a lot of people are feeling that.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to hear that you guys, you're able to kind of talk about like, yeah, maybe COVID hasn't been such a great time, because we have a lot of people on this show, and I always feel like they're afraid to say that they have anything bad going on because they're famous or they're in a certain position. And it's always nice to hear that, no, yeah, it's not a great time, because it's not a great time for anybody.
Perks of being not famous.
You're famous in your own right. Isn't that what matters?
I suppose so, yeah.
Well, speaking of being famous, let's start at the beginning here. How did you guys come to form the Fairview?
Oh God. You first.
No, I was just gonna say that it was a lot of different phases. It started with Nolan in high school with some friends from his high school, and members come, members go. As the band gets a little more older, a little more serious and focused, and I joined like maybe 5 years ago now. But that was like a year and a half into the band being a thing already. But I don't know. The Fairview is just like this weird thing that's grown over time into what it is.
Yeah, sometimes on drives, like when I'm in the car just alone, I'll think about that. I'll just be like, you remember when I was like 16 and my dad bought me a guitar and I was like, I'm going to start a pop punk band. And now no one who was in it at the start is in it besides me. But it's it's like formed this, I don't know. It's weird thinking that now it's something that was like able to be taken on the road and, put music on streaming platforms and stuff.
Yeah.
Weird thinking about how that's where it is now. It's strange. But
yeah,
it started cool. Just high school. That's it. Covering All Time Low in a basement. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it sounds a lot like my story, where everyone just expected you to be that, they're that band that like wants to be a band, but like whatever, they're just a bunch of kids we go to high school with, and then they're putting stuff out and people think you're cool for once or whatever.
Yeah. Kind of happens that way.
And so I'm really curious to hear this too. What would you say that some of your influences are? Because I'm getting a lot of notes in your music from different areas, but generally one thing I always find about your sound and a lot of the sound from like the southeastern Massachusetts area, there's definitely a similar sound that hits a note with a lot of people and is definitely more popular. But you guys have a very specific portion of that sound, and I don't know how to explain that. So I'm curious what those influences are that kind of create what that is.
For me, the Wonder Years has always been a huge influence. They've been like, since I was like a younger teenager, they've just been like the recurring, like, pop punk, like outfit, the way they've, changed with time and everything. I'm always influenced by the way Dan Campbell writes. I just think their music's really good. And then in terms of like how I end up writing guitars, I'm always influenced a little bit by Will Swan from Dance Gavin Dance. even if I try not to be, I still just like things that are a little bit busy and that like, uh I don't know. I'm not nearly as technical in that respect, but like, I just like things to kind of have their own melodies and lines and things to say. But Nolan, what are some of your influences?
Oh God, I loved Mayday Parade growing up, and you can definitely tell. Like Jake kind of like cornered me into being a co-vocalist when he joined the band, even though I didn't want to. But I'm glad he did because we are both big fans of like A Lesson in Romantics era Mayday.
Mhm.
That's definitely one. I'm influenced by a lot of like Motown and classic rock, stuff like that, and like soul things of that nature. And you can tell by how hard I try to sound like it in my vocal performance, even though I never will be. There's one where I really try to be like, yeah, like, and
Yeah.
also very Patrick Stump, Fall Out Boy, that like
Yeah.
soulful type singing pop punk, I guess.
Yeah,
Right.
that approach.
And that just like I think so I'm a guitarist in the band, and I think when it comes to like writing, I'm a rhythm guitarist in the band, and the rhythm guitarist in the band, there's only one. And I think so piano was the first instrument I learned, and it's kind of like my strongest suit. So I think a lot of my guitar writing they end up being like these big sweeping, like very complex chords, like chords stacked on chords, so to speak. And I think that comes from the fact that like when I play rhythm piano, that's what it is. So I feel this like urge to duplicate that on the guitar, and it sounds like really big too I feel like it sounds big after the fact. So that's where that sound kind of comes from.
What's funny is I when listening through this record, there's two bands that I pulled out, and you don't necessarily sound like these bands, but these songs did, and they were Paramore and 4 Year Strong, which is very weird, and I'll explain when I get there, because those are not even like on the radar of what I even mean
Big
by that
Paramore
sound.
fan.
Yeah, Paramore is great, and 4 Year Strong was just like a out of the blue thing, but there was something about it, and I'll point it out when we get there.
Right.
So kind of shifting onto the record now that I've touched on it a little bit there. What was kind of like the intention or like the story behind writing this record?
I mean, thematically, it kind of followed a really big breakup at the time for me, like in like 2017 or so. A lot of the songs revolve around that breakup because like I think like you have relationships in high school, but like I was with a person for like 3 years, like into our adulthood, and like I moved into an apartment like while I dated this person, and I just think I like had a lot of growth and a lot of change with that person. And so when the relationship ended, it was unlike anything I had ever really felt before. And I took it really hard. So a lot of the album kind of revolves around that time, if not necessarily like around the breakup, it revolves around the time and what I was dealing with and what I was thinking. And it's just kind of also a story about like that kind of wounded optimism that comes from when you've like just dealt with some shit that you've never had to deal with before, and you come out of it and like you're not like, oh man, everything's gonna be great forever, but you're just kind of like, all right, I can handle being alive because I dealt with this, and I'm happy to be here at least.
Right.
So that was kind of ultimately what the album ended up being about, was that feeling of like I'm emerging from this and I'm better for it.
It was also like our first dive into like some political commentary with like Leviticus 420 and cigarette etiquette and stuff like that, like some social cigarette etiquette follows like a social interaction of like being at a high school party when there's like fucking the obvious Trump people around and being like, all right, fuck this. Pretty much.
I was actually surprised to hear that it was there was some breakup influence there, because like I felt a hint of it, but for the most part I felt like it was more self-reflective on your relationships outside of actually having a relationship that was romantic. So I that's what I really like about this album, because a lot of albums are breakup albums, and a lot of albums are love songs, and this didn't feel like that. And that's why I think it was really well written and really well orchestrated, and curious about that intention. So, and do you guys have a favorite track on the album?
What's yours?
In Rib Cages or Plan B?
All right, mine's in Rib Cages. for sure. I just think it's like
Mm.
the big, like emo pop punk climax of like
No
it's just
Smith
it's
track.
that yeah it's just that feely stuff. Like it's so feely and emotional. Um, and like when it's big, but when it's quiet, it's quiet. I just think it's a really good song. I think it's one of the more nuanced songs we've had, and I really like it for it. You know.
Oh yeah. I like Plan B for, and I've said this in like every single interview about this record that we've done. I like I like Plan B because when Jake wrote Plan B, there was this like several bar block of like just rhythm guitar going on, and I was like, okay, cool, what's here? And he was like, I want you to rip the fattest guitar solo you can possibly rip. And I spent like 4 hours in the studio just taking it and taking the solo again, running it again until I felt I was satisfied with it. And that was just a fun experience. Like by the end, it was the first thing I showed my mom when I got home from recording. I was like, listen to this. I'm fucking sick at guitar. That was it.
I love that feeling when you just finally, you're like, this is, oh my God, look what I did.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
listen to it so much where you actually get sick of it, but you're sick of it because of a good reason,
Yeah, yeah. You like stop hearing it as a real song. It's just this weird thing.
Right. And like, there's always a point if I write something like I need to listen to it over and over again, and like if I don't, it's almost like drugs. Like if you don't get your fix of listening to that specific thing,
Yeah,
that
you're
you've done,
like,
you know,
you're like, oh my god. All right.
yeah. I know
Yeah.
it's 2 a.m., but I'm in the mood, so this is what we're gonna do.
Mm.
So what I'd like to do is just go track by track a little bit. I've written down some of my thoughts on some of this, but I know we're going to talk about it more in the episode. So I really want to hear what you guys' thoughts or purpose or message behind the song is. Some of the thoughts here, I just kind of want to pave the way and just start the discussion on it. So yeah, let's dive right in then to Black Cat, Broken Mirror, and Two Dead Birds. And I kind of interpreted the song kind of like, not being able to control the future, not being able to control what comes next.
Yeah, that's definitely a large portion of it. I think a very, very big portion is being resistant to change. Like when you know that aspects of your life are shitty, like or they're not working, like it's a comfortable, like uncomfortable, like it's not really you being happy, it's just you being comfortable in what you're used to. And knowing that if you were to like have to take those steps forward, it would be terrifying. And so you just choose to kind of resist that change that you know needs to come anyway. And I've found that life has a way of initiating that change anyway, eventually, whether or not you go with it. And so the song's like largely about that. It's just like, accepting that, everything's going to evolve and adapt and become something new. And like you just kind of, you're better off moving with it than trying to like force yourself to stay in one place.
And can I ask where the title came from?
Yes. Yeah. So when I first moved to Providence in 2016,
I love this shit.
So I moved in with like Craigslist roommates in like a 1-bedroom apartment. I mean, no, like a few bedroom apartment on Wickenden Street. And when I moved in, I found out that my roommate had a black cat, and I was like, huh. When I was moving into my place, I had like a floor mirror, and at some point it got knocked over and it completely shattered my mirror, like full glass mirror on the ground. And then I was walking to my job from like my house to Starbucks that I was working at on Thayer Street. And on 2 separate occasions in the first week of me living there, a bird flew into a window in front of me during my walk. So
oh my God.
I remember all of this
Fucking
being
hex.
very, yeah. I remember all this just kind of being like, damn, this just feels like really ominous and weird. And like, I don't think
like,
it was
6 bundles of sage in his room at a time.
Yeah, I'm like not superstitious, but I was like, this is fucking weird. And I don't think it was like any real like omen or whatever. I just think it's kind of like a funny metaphor for like something's coming.
Yeah. You're not superstitious, but a little bit stitious, right?
Correct. Yes, yeah. Exactly.
I knew I'd slip an office quote in somewhere.
We got it. If you
There we
don't,
go.
what are you doing?
So to follow that up is "Your Hair in the Rain," and there's one line in here specifically that I totally understood, but yet love that I almost didn't, and that doesn't make sense. But that specific sense of non-specific dread, you know, I felt that it kind of hurt feeling it, and it was almost like there was this sense of like it's almost a relatable breakup song, and that was like the one time I felt there was a breakup involved.
Mm.
But nobody cares what I have to say.
Yeah, I mean that was
God.
definitely like the more breakup song for sure on the record. It's like
Yeah.
right out there, huh? But yeah, specific sense of non-specific dread. I think was just kind of meant to be like anxiety, like or guilt anxiety, like the kind of like, oh no, I'm a fucking bad person, like you know oh, like how can I be a good person if when I'm doing my best, when I'm trying my hardest to be considerate and to be caring, I'm still fucking up and I'm still not being the person I need to be. How can I consider myself a good person? And like it's that kind of dilemma, I think, was like what I personally thought when I wrote it. But in general, I think it's just meant to be like that dread of guilt and anxiety and stuff
Yeah.
over stuff.
Yeah. Well, and and actually, I think this relates even to the next song because it's actually the note that I wrote for Recover here was this intention versus perception of like your personality of what you're trying to be and what you think you're doing is right, but then again, the perception is that you're fucking up, and you don't want to do that. But it comes across that way, even if it's not in your mind. And I kind of got that for both songs, that kind of feeling that no matter what you do, you're messing up, even though you're trying your best.
Mm. Yeah, and I don't know. That's a tough thing to grapple with when you're like young and figuring out who you are and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when you're in your 20s, you're trying to you're trying to find yourself, and if you keep doing what you think is right, but the results are not favorable, then how do you learn what's right?
How do you conceptualize yourself?
Exactly, and that's what I love about this type of music and this record is it's there's a self-reflection here where you're really still trying to unpack the person that you are, and you just haven't fully figured it out yet, and it's all a learning experience, and pretty much until you die, that's life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I touched on Recover, but I kind of want to hear a little more from you on what that means.
Yeah, Recover. I included Recover specific because we were gonna do an older song. Recover is from an EP that we put out in like 2015, I think. And I really wanted to do Recover because I thought the themes really did match up, but like from very different points in my life, because that was like even longer ago, with a very kind of like self-deprecating, I don't know, like the whole idea of like I don't want to be the kind of person people have to recover from. I think like it's something that's grounded in good intention, but ultimately we can't control how we affect anybody. Like we can we like need to be doing our best, absolutely, but like at the same time, like I find a lot of people are just kind of recovering from each other because of their differences and how long they stayed together. Like it's nuanced and it's complicated. So I liked having Recover kind of come back because it kind of represented this like moment of like regression almost, where it's like I feel like a kid, I feel like a teenager, and that I'm just angsty and sad and angry and insecure. Yeah, but no one really revamped the fuck out of that song in the studio. Like because we didn't have like a ton of ideas. Like we like had some ideas, but we didn't. When we went in, there was a lot of like filling around, and Nolan and our producer Ian like went really hard on like the rhythm guitars and the bass for it. So like that when I came in to do leads, I was like, what is this? I was really excited.
Well, yeah, when we made that in 2015 for the first time, I think it was just like straight up drop D power chords, because that was, I don't know, that was definitely where we were at as a band at that time.
Yeah.
And I just like, yeah, I don't know, my guitar playing style progressed in between those two times, and I wanted it. So if we were gonna take Recover, an old tune, and drop it in our newest release, you know, it had to also kind of sonically blend in with the album, not just thematically. So yeah, threw some of my big old, you know, um, dad gad like Franken chords in there.
Yeah.
Um, and
I love
yeah,
that.
so it got a little bigger, a little wider of a song. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and definitely it definitely fits in sonically and thematically. Like it I wouldn't have even known, because actually I didn't even know it was off another EP, so I wouldn't have been able to discern that it was from a different era at all.
Yeah,
So kudos.
That's cool.
cool. Thanks.
That's good. No, it's really cool to hear.
Yeah, well, and you know, like first listen, you know, like I kind of walked in, you know, I knew what I was going to expect, because you know I've seen you guys live, I've heard you guys before, and I you know there's this like level of sound I expected, but in a lot of ways I was surprised, because it wasn't exactly what I expected it to be, and that's what was really cool about it, because you know you go in with the perception and you're blown away, so just compliments. I like to give those. Those are fun. Do
we love compliments.
So the next track is Only Grays. And there, I don't know why Notes is telling me that Grays is spelt wrong. I heard somewhere that E is like for Europe and A is for America, but screw them.
I think it super doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah,
I just don't care at all.
Right?
Whoa,
Who cares?
whoa. Hold on. You know what? Pause. It's for what? The E spelling is for what?
So
Europe.
people in Europe they use the E spelling, in America they use the A spelling, and I don't think they have anything to do with it, but that's just what they do.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
Do that.
I heard it in middle school from some girl that thought she was smart. So we'll just
gotcha. So who's to say? We've all got Google. We could have looked it up, but we didn't.
We could have. I think it's more interesting to just speculate.
Yeah, who's to say? You know, who really knows? Language.
Yeah. It's really gray what the spelling of gray is.
Hey.
But anyway, a line I pulled out of here in particular was I got used to the loneliness the same way a body does pain, and that's really good imagery, because you know I was actually at work the other day, and somebody I work with has a knee brace on. He was trying to explain to me how it felt, and he actually poked me in the arm. He goes, "It doesn't hurt you, but you just kind of it's there." You know what I mean? Like it hurts, but it doesn't hurt that bad anymore. You know, and that's kind of what I related it to. It's just like, yeah, being alone kind of does feel like that when you've done it long enough.
Yeah, I think it's easy to just like start to take a certain level of depression, and just like it's your normal, and you're just like walking around in this just constant state of like, you know, weird dissociation, or you know, all that, like, and yeah, that song's very interesting, because like it's been about like three different things. It was originally going to be on It Could Be Worse Than It Is, but it wasn't ready yet, and because it was about a completely different thing and the lyrics sucked, it wasn't ready. But it's wild, because then it became like this song about how like in moments where, you know, things are really tough, like, and challenging, you can kind of like turn to a faith that you very much rejected. Like, you know, not something that you are open to in any way, shape, or form, but like something you grew up with, and it like you feel that vulnerability, and like you kind of reach out again, but like you're kind of angry at yourself for doing so, you know. And just like, you know, weird complicated feelings, and the ways we punish ourselves for just being vulnerable. And yeah, it's that kind of song, I guess.
Yeah, and I really like that concept of, you know, when you start to start to look back at something that you've kind of looked away from before, you know, in times of need, you know, and not only speaking maybe of religion, but like in terms of you know, even people, you know, sometimes, you know, you look back at like people that may have treated you bad in your life because you miss certain moments and you feel like you need those again. I don't know, interesting Interesting. I'm doing a lot of self-reflection as we're talking about it, so that's why I pause
I'm
in these
glad,
random moments.
I'm glad this is all just like one big therapy session for all of us. I think it's
Well, and
great.
that's the beauty of this show is it's called Esoterica. We talk about things that are offbeat, unusual, or just left of mainstream. And
Mhm.
you know, there are some people in this world that may have never heard of you guys if they didn't listen to this show, for example. So if this is a big therapy session for them, then that's all I wanted.
Then hell yeah,
Um,
free of charge.
No
so
copay.
yeah, there you go. You can check out my degree in um, psychology. Anyway, our next track on here is Connecticut. And this is where I said Paramore because for some reason there's like a Misery Business vibe I got.
Okay. You know
Yeah,
what? Okay, Aaron. Okay.
I could see it. I could see it.
yeah. I can't pinpoint where it was. I just remember listening to it and being like, huh, yeah.
As long okay, but riddle me this, Aaron. What album?
Yeah. What album?
What album, Paramore?
Oh, I'm not a Paramore fan. I just know that one song.
Oh, okay, fine.
Oh, okay. So Riot. All right, that's fine.
Yeah. Or to be fair, I know like 2 or 3 Paramore songs because they played them at work all the time. But this one, I was like, what song is this? I know it. I've heard it before. Oh, it's this one. Like that's what it was. And that's not to say you stole it. What I'm saying is that they're like it's familiar in a good way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I like to always compare that. And there was don't get offended what I'm also about to say. I also felt like there was these are all good things, I promise. There was a point where like it really gets stripped down, I think vocally, and it sounded a lot like new Machine Gun Kelly, which is really weird. I know. Take that a good way.
I have not listened to any new Machine Gun Kelly
Nor have I.
or old Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah.
Nor have I.
I never listened to him. I never listened to him before.
But like the new song. Yeah, I just have no context for it. I'm gonna look that up later and be like, man, fuck you, Aaron.
He did this really good genre shift, and it's definitely more him, I think. But there was just one point, like the way that the vocals sounded, I think followed a similar melody vein, and I was like, hey, it's Machine Gun Kelly. So hey, look, you're MGK now. But there was a line in here in particular. You slip out like smoke of my car window. I think might have even worded that wrong, but that's again, it is right. Okay, I cut and paste a lot of this, but I'm not sure. That was perfect imagery. Like, that's what I always like to pull out really good imagery lines because that's just always good relation for a lot of people, especially me. So yeah, you slip out like the smoke of my car window. I picture that immediately. I actually picture like a ghost, like Casper, just like floating out a window. But in the shape of a person.
Jake is so fucking good at that. It actually makes me angry. Like I actually don't like Jake because he always like he'll send me some shit that he's working on. I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sake, dude, you're a fucking asshole.
I try to be smart like that, but I just don't have that level of intelligence that can word things that way.
Literally, all my lyrics that I ever write have to go through Jake first for that reason. It's like I need someone way more smarter and in touch with words.
So this was one of my 2 top favorite tracks on this album, and so I really want to hear a lot about that. You know, I always love the songs that talk about places that I know about, so I get excited. I'm like, oh, Connecticut, Rhode Island, I've been there. So
yeah. Well, the whole structure of this song kind of predicates on the very common experience of being stuck in Connecticut's highway, like the 2-lane highway. I don't know what it's called.
95.
Not 95. I'm talking about the 2-lane highway.
Oh, Merrick Parkway.
Merrick Parkway. Getting stuck there in traffic for like hours and hours and hours. But while we went on our first tour, which is like what this was written about, that's when the big kind of breakup that I was dealing with that I wrote about happened. Like it was while we were on tour. And so I wrote the song when we got home. Well, after we actually ended up breaking up, like the day after, just about being stuck in traffic and not being able to do anything but sit there in traffic while you know your relationship's falling apart and you're you're just in different places. I mean, gosh. Nolan can kind of speak to the general emotional turmoil.
I never wanted to get Jake home from a tour so bad. I was just like, I need to get this person home.
It was,
you know, not be on tour as of right now, maybe
Yeah.
it's done. Like
I mean, it was a great time, but I was just,
it was.
I was going
Yeah.
through it. So like I thought it'd be really just right to kind of like frame an entire song around being stuck in traffic in Connecticut because that was one of the worst parts of the whole experience for me.
Mm.
Um, and waking up in like on air mattresses and remembering what was happening in my life.
Oh
You
my
know what I
gosh.
mean? Because I would
Yeah.
wake up and be like, "Oh, I'm a tour," and then it'd be like, "Oh, my relationship's falling apart," and it would be
Mm.
like, "Oh, that realization every day that I'm just
Yeah,
like."
the night before that drive, we ended up playing in Connecticut with a band called. We were on tour with Familiar Spaces, and we played with.
Way back.
Yeah, oh my god, and we played with a band called Plans from Indiana,
Mm.
and we all three band. Actually, I don't know if Fam ended up staying. I think Corey did, but we all ended up staying at an old college friends of mine's house, like right near the venue. I mean,
Mm.
it ended up being like a total party. Like we just, drinking, hanging out all night and stuff
You
like
like
that.
rager.
A little, okay.
It kind of did. In my eyes, it did. I had never been to college parties. I was
There
like,
was, there was like 10 of us. Rager. But yeah, so we all like got pretty intoxicated the night before, and then just like I just remember all of us waking up feeling like that was fucking dumb, and then like plus poor Jacob, like dealing with all that, like
Yeah.
it was a day, man. That was a day.
Yeah. Good. Real highs, real lows.
And I had a thought and I lost it, so we're gonna skip over it. But
Sorry.
it's okay. It was gonna tie this all together, but now I can't do it.
But it's
So
whatever.
it
was gonna be perfect, but
yeah, it wasn't even. I don't have perfect thoughts. But following that is and the drive home, and that song, like the vibe of it, just completely makes sense for a drive home. Like it's this like, you think about like if you're fighting with somebody, for example, and you have to drive home with them, or even the self-reflection of like your life driving home, like that entire vibe is like exactly how that feels. The guitar tone, the room sound, everything.
Yeah, it was super cinema. It's still cinematic to me hearing that song. It feels like it should be in something. There should be a visual there,
Yeah.
but there doesn't need to be. Jake took that song not very many times in studio. There was only a couple takes, and that was one of those songs where like Jake took it and me and Ian were so it was just one mic, vocal booth, acoustic guitar, and me and Ian, our producer, were just sitting outside of that booth. And as soon as the take concluded, we were like, "That's done, that's it. Like, don't touch it. Don't really do much to it."
And I disagreed. I thought that. I didn't think that was the one at all.
We're like, "Fuck you, Jake."
And one thing I particularly love about the song is like there are distinct points where there are like probably not great notes that go with the key played, but they add to the atmosphere of the song, and I love it. And I don't know if those were intentional or not, but they were.
It's easier to like it now, I think, for its imperfections than I did. Because, like, technically we recorded it in 2018. So there was a bit of time between when we recorded it and when we actually put it out. So by the time we put it out, I was like, I love all these imperfections. I think it's cool. but at first I was like, man, what did we drop the ball? Should we have done another take? Like, I was concerned a little bit, but I think it's cool for what it is. If it were somebody else's voice just doing it in that style, I'd be like, I love how raw it is, but because it's mine, I'm like all weird about it.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I just put out a record a couple months ago, and when I put out the record, there's a song where I intended for it to be raw, and I'm like, it sounds like shit. I don't like it.
I do that when my vocals aren't raw.
Yeah, you're brutal on yourself with your vocals. No, not in a cool way. Not like cool brutal.
So my second, there's no two order. Like these two are like my top favorite, but Adhesive is also my favorite song on this record. And
what? You're right about that. Let me slip that one in mine. Sorry, go on.
I cut and pasted an entire like section of words in because I listened to that and I'm like, whoa, okay, yeah, that's like been my life the past few years. And it's why should I hold us together? Why am I the one apologizing to you? I'm forever your adhesive. Use me at your convenience. And I'm like, what I loved is I was listening to the song and I get towards the end and I'm like, adhesive, like what the hell? Like, is it like, are you like the glue, like keeping, like, I was trying to figure it out because it almost seemed like, it was positive, like I'm your adhesive, use me at your convenience. And I actually had to go back and I'm like, I missed this whole section. I had to go back and give it a second listen. I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I think it is. You're the adhesive. You're actually keeping something together, even though that's probably shouldn't be the case. And that's been my life for so long. So I listened to that and I was like, whoa, other people feel that way?
Yeah. I mean, everyone has had an experience with like a friend who is just only about their own shit. Like they don't see anything apart from their own shit. Um, like, and that doesn't necessarily even mean that they're bad people. It's just that they're toxic to be around. Like it's hard, like it's painful to stay close with a person who pushes you away.
If someone is yet to like have a sort of ego death, you know what I'm saying? That can be really hard. If someone's yet to like see hurt that they cause, at least just see it. Just see it. Like if you can't change it, see it, and change moving forward.
Yeah, just kind of the idea of like you're gonna blow up at me or you're gonna say something shitty. I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna not say what I should say or set the boundaries that I need to set. And I'm just gonna take it and continue to hold our relationship together via my own suffering. Like, and I think it's a place that a lot of people fall into with people because they do care about people and they've got memories with people. And the song is just about the frustration of that. Someone who will just like, say the worst things in an argument and then like try to turn it around on you. Right. That kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that like we were able to make a song that feels so like, big giant middle fingers up to that as a concept. I think because people have said like, oh, like I love this because like I super relate to it. Which is just, really dope. That's the coolest thing ever to hear all the time, every single time it happens. And especially just because like I did write a lot of the lyrics of that song in such angry like fucking furies, like just like spitting as I do it because I'm just pissed off. Like it's good. It's cool to know that like people hear that and they're like, oh yeah, man, fuck that guy, whoever that guy is, fuck him.
Angry Jake is one of my favorite Jakes just because it's always just so on point. It's always so on point. Every time Jake says something with anger, I'm always like, you know what? Yeah. Like, I'm like, I'm with that guy.
Yeah. And what I love is like everybody's got that person, everyone's got that person where it's like, why am I wasting my time? Like, screw you, and the thing that I actually related to was I'm very involved in Scouts, and there's one unit in particular that was falling apart, and I was really the glue that was holding that together. So in a lot of ways, it wasn't just one relationship; it was my relationship with everybody in that unit. And so I took a different look at it for that reason. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
Adhesive, just I love that. It's not glue.
Don't be the adhesive.
Yeah.
Maybe in your family if it's not horrifically toxic and abusive, but like otherwise don't be the adhesive.
And also maybe not even in your family if that gets to be too much.
That's what I said.
Listen.
I'm gonna drive to your house.
I'm driving my ass to Providence.
I'm gonna drive your ass to Providence.
You're getting a swirly.
Oh my gosh, I'm just picturing that, and I'm gonna move on now. So the next track, I don't want to just misconstrue this message because I think I understand it, but it probably sounds better coming from you guys. And am I pronouncing this right? Litviticus 420?
Yes, that's okay. Correct.
All right, because it's underlined red, and I'm like, this has got to be like intentionally wrong.
It's underlined red because it's blasphemous.
Perfect.
To say technically, probably.
Perfect.
It's like playfully heretical. Leviticus 420, silly title aside, is about kind of the rise of, or not even necessarily the rise, the existence and permanence of like evangelical like white supremacy in America, and the ways in which many leaders and powerful people in our country use Christianity and be evangelical Christianity specifically, to kind of like mask, you know, a lot of bigotry and a lot of even just like underhandedness, like, you know, teething, like taking money from people who are, you know, a little like vulnerable and less educated. Like there are a lot of people proclaiming the name of Christ in a very shitty way, which is like, so I grew up in a very religious household. So like I really ended up rejecting the life that I was kind of raised to believe in, but I carry the knowledge of like what the Bible actually holds with me because we had to read it a lot. That was just the kind of church it was. And so like I know Jesus is like honestly like a socialist person of color who was like murdered for speaking truth to power. And like these people who proclaim Christianity in America, you know, they haven't read the damn thing. They don't fucking know what they're talking about because the way they use Christianity to like just do evil, it's horrendous. And the song kind of plays out as like this, you know, faux worship song. Like it comes in and it's like it's kind of playful, but like in a weird, not playful way. But I kind of wanted to kind of like evoke that feel of like a worship song and then just rip it apart at the end. Because it's
even the chord progression that you wrote for it, like the 2 5 1 minor 7, like kind of chord progression that it follows before like the ending, is so like reminiscent of like chords that like a church organist would play. That dawned on me like recently, like after the fact. I always wondered why it like why that song drove the point home so hard. You know what I'm saying? Even before it started to really kick in. And it was because that chord progression is just super Christian hymn vibes. It took like one of my students I teach music lessons full time. And one of my students only plays Christian hymns. All he's interested in playing, it's all his parents are interested in having him play. So that's fine. That's what we do. And he was playing one day and it just hit me. I was like, dude, Leviticus is a worship song. Like it straight up is, but go on. Sorry.
No, that's all pretty much.
Well, there was a point, and I actually had to go onto your Bandcamp and pull up the lyrics to find it. But like, I think literally that "Praises be to our beloved Jesus," like, or maybe it's the lines that come before that. Like, there was a point where I listened to that, I'm like, that is exactly what church sounds like. That is it right there. And I just put my finger on it. I'm like, I've heard this every Sunday for like every day of my life. Where was I gonna? It's really unfortunate how much people have weaponized Christianity. You know, like my last name is legitimately Christian, and I'm offended. But I try to live my life by this code. Kind of, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I try to live my life kind of like by Jediism, where it's all the world's religions boiled down into one thing. Let's just don't be a dick. So at the end of the day, just be a Jedi. Don't be a dick. You know?
Facts. It felt really good to have a song where we talked about this too. Like, I kind of knew like I wasn't going to be the one to write this because I didn't grow up in a Christian household, like by any means, really. But my mother is Jewish, my dad is Catholic, and they couldn't really, the families kind of fought when I was born, like, what are we going to indoctrinate him into? And it ended up being nothing because of that fighting, for which I'm ever really thankful. But growing up, in my little nook of Southeast Massachusetts, where everyone was like Catholic or some form of Christian. Yeah. Like, unfortunately, it got out in like middle school that my mom was Jewish, and I got death threats at 10 years old. 10 and 11-year-old kids were saying like, we're gonna come to your house and kill you and your Jew bagel mother. These were things that were said to me when I was, you know, like I had a friend one time too. Someone I considered a friend be like, "Have you been saved?" While we were in class, and I was like, "I don't know what that means," because quite literally, I did not know what it means. She's like, "Have you been baptized?" I was like, no, I don't think I have. I don't really do the religion thing. I was never told to. Um, and she straight up looked at me. She's like, I'm terrified for you. You're gonna burn in hell. Like in class. And I was like, whoa, what? Like this is too much. So like, and that carried on throughout high school and stuff like that. So I just like, yeah, growing up as someone who just like straight up wasn't. It's not even that I'm not Christian. I'm not really anything. Um, and it just, it made me a target, and it felt really good to finally like be involved in a song that highlighted some of the hostility
Yeah.
behind that.
It's a running theme that I channel a lot of Nolan's rage into what I write so that he can feel it when we play the songs. Like I literally take things from his life. I'll like write things that only apply to him. Like I don't smoke cigarettes, or I never did. Um
I
and
do.
like so that way he's like, yeah, yeah, I know. Like this is me too. Like, because we're both singing it.
Yeah, and I don't want to drag this out too far, but like I feel like especially in this area, because a lot of people are Catholic in this area and the rest of the
Mm,
United States is Protestant. Like I stopped being a Catholic because I really didn't like the idea of like I had to go through other people to have this relationship with a higher power. And that's
mhm.
not something like that doesn't make sense to me. Why can't I just do it on my own? And
Yeah,
so it's having that, being saved or things like that. Why can't I just have that relationship?
yeah.
Um,
Spirit. There's nothing wrong with spiritualism being a private thing. Like,
Exactly.
Mm.
Like going to confession or things like that. Those are things that I never understood, because if you're supposed to have this relationship and God's supposed to decide for you what your path is, then why am I the one that has to go through somebody else to understand that when I can just
Yeah.
understand these things about myself?
you said it,
And
dog.
so ditto. Um, but anyway, not to, because religion we could talk about all night. I'm sure there's a lot of problems there.
Got a whole
But
lot to say about it, believe
oh
me.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So cigarette etiquette. Um,
Woo.
we talked about when we talked to Cleopatra. We talked about one of their songs where they talked about the boys that wear the backward baseball caps and they're just like those assholes.
Mm.
And we tried to ask ourselves, like, has there ever been a point like where there's like a song that's actually promoting those types of people? The reason why I bring that up is because there's always those assholes in high school that never grew up and just got older. Everybody knows at least one person that still acts that way. Um,
Yeah.
and that I think is the glue, the adhesive that pulls this entire song together. Call back. Um, and I know there's more to this song, so I want to let you talk about that. But I thought that was really important to note.
Hmm. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Can you say just like the last part of that again? Because I feel like I missed it.
Sure. Oh, I was just saying that. I relate to that. Never grew up and just got older, and I know there's more to the song than just that line. So I wanted to
Oh
let you
yeah.
expand a little more.
Oh yeah. Okay. I mean, it's kind of like a dual. It sounds like one experience, but I kind of wrote it as two separate experiences. The first verse being mine, and the second one being Nolan's. Just because we Nolan went to college, Nolan went to high school parties. Like Nolan kind of like lived that life. I was very introverted and didn't get really invited to things. I didn't experience like partying any certain way. So when I write something about a party, I'm like, all right, what am I really writing here? What am I doing? But so the whole idea was just the feeling of like, you know, I had freshly moved to Providence. Nolan, was living at home or whatever after he had left school or whatever. And just this idea of like, wow, every time I'm in this space with these people, and it's been like 2 years now, they're the same people. Like we talk and they're not aspiring for anything. They're not trying anything new. Like they're only interested in like just what they know and what they've always known. And I don't know if it's like necessarily a bad thing, but it can be, especially with a lot of people who grow up in these like very these neighborhoods where everyone's the same, not very diverse suburbs typically, where people can just they don't get exposed to other kinds of people and they just like literally carry uh just super outdated and shitty bigoted beliefs. And I mean, so the song was just kind of about being in that space and just being like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, you know, like maybe like signifying the last of those events you really ever go to, just feeling like, you know, this isn't for me anymore. I've clearly outgrown this, but just that feeling of kind of bitter angriness that you do at those people, and also sadness a little bit. Um, yeah, it's just it's kind of like a fuck the hometown heroes song, I guess.
Didn't you go to that party at Ronnie's house that I couldn't make for some reason?
I did. It was terrible.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the inspiration for this song came from that.
It did. Yeah, you're right. You know what? Now that you mention it,
Yeah,
a lot of it did.
Like
Because I was
my like high school ex-girlfriend was there, and like a bunch of douchebags.
and she was your high school ex-girlfriend's friend was trying to convince me that you were a terrible person.
Yeah.
But she was so drunk. And it
And
was
she,
like it was unfortunate because she was really trying to make points, but she could barely form sentences. And I was like, you just got to stop spitting.
She had it out for me for some reason. She thought I wasn't like good enough for her friend. You know, that typical. I don't.
No, I remember.
But like this person thought I was like the worst guy on the earth. This person is like now an avid like Trump backer, like back the blue, like isolated their trans sibling, like doesn't talk to them. They're like I know for a fact that this person who was trying to like, I don't know, just disown me is like admittedly a cruel, cold.
She was mean.
She was a mean person. Like,
yeah,
just
but yeah,
it was. Man.
It was definitely based on that party because I remember like trying to visualize it, and it was always this house like by the woods, a big house by the woods, and that's exactly it. Yeah.
Our old drummer kind of like after leaving the band just went to the wayside. He just became like just that backwoods like
we shouldn't talk about it. He's a real person living his life.
I don't get no one's gonna he's not gonna catch word.
I know.
Fuck him, dude. I don't care.
I agree. Yo,
like 10
he
people
flies
watch
like
the
a
show.
Confederate flag. He can go fuck himself. Like
I 100% agree, but let's just not with them.
Yeah. So that's cigarette etiquette.
Yeah. Well, then let's go to In Rib Cages because
cigarette etiquette is my hometown being fucking shit. Like,
yeah. Actually, you know what? Before we stop talking about cigarette etiquette, I do want to talk a little bit. Just want to point out that we had like a really good experience in the studio, and that with cigarette etiquette, like that whole like middle part where it gets softer and all that. So much of why that sounds how it sounds is because of Ian Joshua Riley, and I just want to point that out. He was our producer, and he's amazing, and I just wanted to point that out. Like the double guitar solo, like we didn't know what we were gonna do, and we figured it out like in real time, just in that moment, and it was a very cool experience. Awesome. It was very exciting for us.
Shout out to Stay Here, Carter Harden, and Haley Mewborn for the group vocals.
Oh yeah, true.
They're from Georgia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just, you know how I remembered that is Nick Lowney's Facebook with "Stay Here" in parentheses GA. That's how I remember it.
Oh yeah, there you
go. Anyways, moving on. In rib cages. I loved the area specific imagery because I think it just describes a lot in this song, like what it's like to just live and grow up here, you know, in a lot of ways. And I love songs that talk about places I know about. That's really what I'm getting at. But again, In Rib Cages, I know this is like one of you guys's, or I don't like, was both of you guys's one of your favorite songs. So
yeah, I love it. I really do love it. It's like I really do think it's one of, if not the best song we have as a band so far. Just because I think it really tells a story and it really like paints a mood and a feeling. I mean, like kind of like it's just like weird. Like it's not even. It's funny because it's like not even really about any one thing. It's just kind of like feelings, thinking about how you've grown and thinking about how people are, and you know, it was just kind of a song about my feelings and nothing else. but I just think it like resonates, and I think, like I said, I think it's a song that I would have listened to at 15 and like cried to. I feel like, and that's
Mm,
kind of like what I want to write for myself, I guess.
right.
But yeah,
Yeah, I
Nolan, why is it
definitely.
your favorite?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, no, go ahead. I'd rather hear from Nolan than hear anything I have to say.
I
What?
I suppose yeah, it's just got that penultimate feel as far as where it is in the album and the sort of like the swing time vibe of it, like boo, boo, ba, boo, boo, ba, boo, ba, boo, boo, ba. I've just always wanted to write a song that has that sort of feel, that sort
Yeah.
of
Mm.
Nolan wrote the original instrumental for it.
yeah. It's I posted a video to Instagram like when I wrote the riff like years ago, and it's still on there. And I sometimes I will scroll down to my Instagram and like listen to. I like what it became. You know, it started as like a 45-second guitar clip where I wrote like up to the second verse, um, just on guitar, just the riff, and it's cool to listen back and then listen to what it became,
Mm.
and just the memories I have, like Jake said, of it coming alive in the studio. Wow, Jake, nice asshole.
I'm so
Um,
sorry.
maybe put it on vibrate next time, prick. um,
This is a family show. No, it's
yeah,
not.
I was
Don't worry.
fucking talking.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no, it it's just cool to listen to what it became. I don't know. It's a good vibe. It gives me Mayday Parade vibes.
Yeah.
Definitely does.
Probably why I like it.
Yeah. Oh, and there's a major callback in it too that is just, I'm really happy about it. I'm just kind of flexing right now, I guess. I'm just saying something that I wrote is cool, but
What it is.
I'm starting to think we're all ex-friends and former lovers, recovering from one another,
Mm.
and fucking up's just inevitable. That is supposed to be like a direct callback to Recover, and
Yeah.
the way I felt when I was a lot younger about breakups and stuff. And I just thought that was a neat little way to show growth,
Mm.
even if it's like subtle and not like pronounced really.
Well, speaking of callbacks, I think this is actually a good point to segue because I wrote a lot about Plan B, and I think what you said it gives me a good foot here. Is there was a line in Plan B that when I listened to the song, and pretty straightforward. I used to say you were my Plan A and banked on you shouldering my weight, prolong the inevitable. And I almost felt like that was the opposite of the message of adhesive almost. You're expecting somebody else to be the adhesive for you and holding you together and carrying your weight. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Um, I think honestly, I feel like what that is an illustration of how you can be both people.
Okay. Yeah.
I never meant for it to be. I
Right.
think that's just the reality of who I was at that time. When I wrote
Right.
Adhesive, that was about a friend who I thought I was holding our relationship together. The reason why I had the breakup I did was because she was holding like me as a person together most of the time. I wasn't in therapy yet. I wasn't doing really any real work on myself. I was just kind of letting everything be out, and as toxic as it was all the time.
Right.
And it's kind of funny. It almost kind of like, yeah, illustrates how you can be one of those people who's like dealing with a person who's like shitty, but sometimes you're the shitty person. And I think sometimes we're all the shitty person, um, because people make mistakes and people do selfish things. And I just think, yeah, it's important to like understand that you can be both people at the same time, even,
Mm.
maybe not in the same case, but like with a different person.
It, I did want to note too, and I said this earlier that I was going to do this. This is the song I thought sounded like 4 Years Strong because the vocal work is so tight and done so well. You guys just work so well together in this song that I was like, this is how 4 Years Strong would do it. They put it together, they bounce off each other, they kind of blend together. So that's where I was like, I know this. I've heard this before in a good way.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But the drum intro is great, and it's just a great, powerful song to end on.
Yeah, Isaac Hiller is the most talented drummer I know. Um, the he's never on interviews or podcasts with us because he just doesn't say much, and then the person hosting always feels bad. Um, I'm dead serious.
Isaac is a man of few words.
Man, a few words, but he's a very talented musician, a very just cool guy, like very talented. Like doesn't act like you need to care about him. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
he's very down to earth and stuff about how he plays and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Isaac will do the sickest shit in the world, and people will like freak out about it. Like people at shows or us in the studio will be like, "Dude, that was fucking wild,"
I
and
mean,
he'll just be
yeah.
like, "Thanks, man."
I mean, everything he recorded. I, aside from like 5 songs on the record, all the other ones we never heard him play the drums on those songs until we were in the studio. We gave him the demos and we told him like, listen to these, work on them, expand on them. If you have ideas, let us know. And he came into the studio and he just knocked it out of the fucking park. Like it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great. I'm shouting out Isaac. That's part of why I wanted that drum bit in the beginning, because I knew it was like his moment to be heard right in front, right in that moment. Because then people go like, "Yeah, the drums were really good on this album, huh?" And I want him to have that because he's really talented.
So that's the end of the album proper. I did want to bring up one more song, and I'm sorry, but I have a story to go with it. So it's Stagnancy, because obviously, but I have a story to go with it, and I wanted to tell you guys. So August 17th, 2018, you and I both played a show. It was in Plymouth, and it was at the church there. We were in that place.
Ooh, the hot one.
Yeah, and yeah,
No
and you
AC.
guys. What?
No AC, baby.
Yeah, that was it. That was it. So we had just gone on. We'd finished. It was either, I think somebody was no recall or something. They were in between us.
Yep.
And then you guys played, and I'm in the pit, and you guys played your whole set, and I think this was your last song, and everyone lined up on either side of the room waiting for the big build up of the song, and we ran into each other at that point in time. I got hit in the face, and I got a nosebleed.
Oh my God, Aaron.
Oh no.
So I was so upset because it's my favorite Fairview song at the time. And I was getting ready for the song, and I'm sitting there with my nose covered in blood. So I just wanted to tell you that story. So I played one of my last shows ever with my band, and then got a nosebleed the same night. So thank you guys for that.
Wow.
But
Full circle.
But like I said before, I love songs that talk about places I know about, and I go to school in Boston, so I take the train every single day. So I had this song on my playlist because I'd get from Quincy, and I wouldn't go all the way to Alewife, but I'd be at Quincy. I'm like, hey, this is the same train. This is totally the red line.
I'm in Quincy.
Yeah. Well, then I go Alewife. This train's going to Alewife.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention about that song, but I just really wanted to tell you that story.
All right. Yeah, man.
I mean, just that with that song, I just think it's cool that people like it so much. That's all.
Yeah.
It was just a song that like we made. I don't think we ever thought of it as like a cool song. It's like if people know us at all, they know that song. Like that song's more popular than we'll ever be. It's amazing. But no, it's just cool. I just appreciate people that are still like listening to what we make and stuff. Even if it's not the new stuff, I just think it's cool.
Yeah, that's one of those songs where I listened to it for the first time, and I listened to the music that I made and my record, and I went, oh, damn, why is this so much better? You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
no.
and you get disappointed, but you're proud of them for doing that. But at the same time, you're like, how do I do that? How do I get from here and go here?
I mean, I feel so that. Much. I do that all the
time. So is there anything you guys want to like pimp at this point in time? Like, you want to promote and push?
Ooh,
anything at all. Could be something that's not even yours.
No, I'm just trying to think about it.
Yeah, give me a sec.
We're good at this.
What locals have I been jamming on?
Anyone Anyway just put out their new single.
Anyone Anyway and Bicycle In put out.
Oh my God, yeah, you're right. Bike too. Those are both pretty good singles. I mean, if you haven't heard either of those singles, then you should.
And shout out, we talked to Bike In a few months ago. I think back in July. So call back to that episode too. Check out them if you haven't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you guys again for coming on and spending the time out of your evening to chat with me about your record and talk to a
thanks for having us.
21-year-old
Yeah,
kid
thank you
in
so much.
Southern
This was
Mass.
a great time.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you.